everybody, and welcome to another episode of Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I'm Lisa Shield, and this is
Benjamin Shield.
And we are so happy to see you here. Today we're going to have an absolutely wonderful conversation about something that Benjamin and I feel is one of the most important elements of a successful relationship. And it probably is the secret ingredient, or one of the secret ingredients, that has made our relationship so successful. So we are going to talk about taking personal responsibility in a relationship. If I had my way, I would do away with the therapeutic model of relationships, right, man?
Yeah.
I think that it's damaging. We're taught that two people come together and, you are wounded and damaged from your past relationships, from your mother, your father, your, ex-husband, ex-boyfriends, and then you come in wounded and damaged, and then you attract a partner who has similar wounds and or who has his wounds, and you trigger each other, and then you're supposed to sit down and work that all out together. And therapists, many therapists, would like you to believe that you need a couples therapist to then come in and teach you how to process all of that by talking to your partner and telling your partner, oh, well, you're reminding me of my mother, or when you do this, it reminds me of my father, and this is why I react this way. And to communicate and work through those issues together. I think it might surprise a lot of people to know, babe, that we don't do any of that in our relationship. In fact, we do how much processing?
Well, if we start processing, I said, sweetheart, are we processing?
Or are you processing? Not we, you. It's usually me, but I'm usually processing something of my own, not our relationship, right? We don't sit and talk about, well, this happened and I reacted this way because of, you said this, and if you had said it this way, it would have been easier, right? So let's talk about the importance of taking personal responsibility in a relationship and what that means.
Well, the first thing is to work on being present, to being in the moment in a relationship, and not think about all the things that happened in the past or all the things that might happen in the future, and really being responsible for our own thoughts. We create our life with our thoughts, our words, our actions, our feelings, and so we're in control. We're not if we stop doing that, if we don't do that, we're more the victims in our lives, and we can create our lives. So instead of being the victims, we can be in charge of our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our words, and our relationship.
And so taking 100% personal responsibility in a relationship, we're not talking about 99% or 80%. We really are talking about being 100% responsible for our reactions to any given situation. It doesn't mean that we won't react, right? There will be reactivity if somebody, if one partner says something and it hits a wound, you will feel upset, or you might feel hurt, or you may feel misunderstood. So we're not talking about like being impervious to getting upset or feeling hurt or emotional or reacting to something that your partner said. But when we talk about taking 100% responsibility for those reactions, what does that mean?
Well, it means as soon as we become reactive to it rather than responsive, as soon as we become reactive, we're out of the moment. And when we're out of the moment, we're susceptible to, in your dating program, emotionally naked dating, there's the naked dater, which is the voice, the true voice, and then there's the frenemy. which is that voice of just doom and gloom.
Past hurts.
And so when we start reacting, we're listening more to the frenemy. And when we're responding from our naked dater. That those better angels of our nature.
Right. And in the words of Don Miguel Ruiz, don't take anything personally. Right? And he doesn't say, don't take 99% of things personally. He says, don't take anything personally. So taking 100% personal responsibility means that, yes, you will get upset. Yes, you will get triggered. Things will come up. But then it's not saying, oh, well, I feel upset because my partner did X, Y, or Z. It means taking a deep breath and taking a step back and saying, what got triggered inside of me? What is the wound that my partner is touching upon, right? Whatever happened, whatever may have been said or done, why am I so triggered by this? What is it bringing up? And the goal is not to go to your partner and say, well, you could have said this differently, or I'm angry at you because if you're taking 100% responsibility, it means looking inside yourself and saying, okay, I am feeling ignored, I'm feeling discounted, I'm feeling fill in the blank, and I need to go back and look inside myself and give myself whatever it is I feel I'm missing so that I don't keep reacting to this.
Right. And in addition to looking at ourselves, we can look at the other person, because sometimes even the worst behavior comes from a sense of innocence. I think if you take the worst possible behavior and you go one layer below that, one layer below that, one layer underneath that, you find an innocent child. Just trying to find, trying to find some kind of, look at me or love me, and they don't know how to do that without resorting to what we'll call bad behavior. So if we can see underneath those levels of irritation and bad behavior, and we see an innocence of what people are really, really asking for, that helps to keep us in the present moment and to really see our partner.
Yeah, and I know for one of our groups, we just reread The Mastery of Love. And one of the ideas in the book, I'm not going to quote Miguel verbatim, but I remember he said, when we can stop reacting, we can see things as they truly are. So we're not, neither Benjamin or I are talking about putting up with abuse. Any kind, you can still see the innocence underneath it, but we're not talking about putting up with abusive behavior, physical abuse, mental or emotional abuse. But what starts to happen is when we don't take it personally and we don't react, if somebody is being abusive, it will hurt because it's painful to have somebody treat anybody that way. Anybody under those circumstances would find that kind of behavior unacceptable and hurtful. But the difference is when you're not reacting and taking it personally, you are able to step outside of that and actually see the wounded person in front of you and where it's coming from. And we advocate for always extracting yourself from a relationship where you're feeling gaslighted, abused mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. Under any circumstances, that is not acceptable. But what we're talking about is the clarity that starts to come from taking 100% responsibility and learning how to be non-reactive.
Yeah, and when we're non-reactive, we're not fueling the fire.
Right.
I think all of us have been in situations, in relationships where we got triggered and we come back with something, they come back, and it just devolves. It escalates and devolves.
Yeah.
And so when we're in the present moment, when we're non-reactive, when we take a breath, we can diffuse the situation where we could actually have a discussion rather than accusing and blaming another person.
Yeah. And so in our relationship, I know in my former relationships, like with my ex-husband, and I think you've experienced this as well.
Oh, yeah.
I know that we sat and we talked ad nauseum about issues and problems. We went round and round and round in circles. And one of the reasons I left him was because, or the reason I ultimately left was because one day we were sitting and having an argument about money, and a voice in my head said to me, "Oh my God, you're having the same discussion that you've been having since the day you met. If you had had a tape recorder and you could have pushed play, this would be an almost identical replay, the same stories, the same lies, the same excuses, the same false promises." And I literally remember stopping mid-sentence and saying to him, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I thought, we haven't gone anywhere. And there's the Einstein quote about you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem. So there we were, two people who were ill-equipped. We had created this mess. We kept replaying it over and over and over and over again. And we were not equipped we didn't have the skills to resolve it. And the skill is take 100% responsibility for your part.
Yeah. And I had a failed relationship because I didn't have the personal clarity and personal responsibility and courage to really stay present with my feelings. And so that when something came up, even if it was fairly inconsequential, all those things that were unspoken just lit up and exploded. So a lot of the arguments were volatile, rather than just saying, this is why I'm hurt. It was just more reactive, and it didn't land with the other person because that person then became reactive, and it just devolved rather than really getting to the issues of what we wanted, what we needed, what we hadn't said.
Yeah. And then we go to therapists who very, very often are not in successful relationships themselves. And it's really the blind leading the blind. They're trying to teach these communication techniques that they've learned from other therapists who didn't have good relationships. And
well, in this same relationship, we would go to a psychiatrist, and on Saturday mornings, and he would just encourage us to fight it out. And so it would be like torturous, and it just ingrained. And so
it's like primal scream therapy.
Right. So we spent I don't know whether it was a half hour, it could have been probably a full hour. And we'd just be screaming at each other and going over the same thing again and again. And then, we'd be walking out of the office in Westwood, California, and Southern California, and say, I'm going to go to the deli today. Do you want a sandwich? And it just like,
oh my God.
It was just like, it was surreal. It was just like paying someone an inordinate amount of money. It was probably like $350 an hour for nothing, for something harmful.
Yeah. Aw. And I know, I think what happens, sometimes in our relationship now, because we both do take responsibility, and part of it, I never knew I'd feel this way when I came into a relationship. A huge part of taking responsibility for myself and my actions and my, not being reactive is that I love you so much. I remember once when, the one time I really remember saying something hurtful to you. I felt misunderstood. I felt like you weren't agreeing with me about something. This was very early on in our relationship. And I looked at you and I said, I can just leave. And you literally, I looked in your eyes and you had this look like I had just slapped you across the face. And I said, oh my God. No, and then you said, what have we just been doing for the last 3 months?
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, he is serious about me. This man has both feet in. He loves me. He wants he's been having a relationship with me. And I looked at you and I said, I will never do that again.
And you haven't.
No, but the pain, when I looked in your eyes and I thought, I can't hurt this man. I love him so much. I don't want to hurt him. I would do anything not to hurt you. And I know sometimes there may be a moment where we are working something through, where something comes up and you share your feelings. And sometimes both of us are attenuated. It's not, I know that in the light of day, we can always hear each other. We find our way, we swim back to the surface so quickly, you and me. And sometimes we just need to take a step back. We don't sit there and argue or hash something out,
Yeah. And a lot of times we express our needs with humor. And so it lands very gently and with laughter, and the other person gets it. When you were talking about not taking things personally, I was thinking about another quote by Don Miguel, that if you don't take things personally about hell.
Oh, you're immune in the middle of hell. If you don't take anything personally, you're immune in the middle of hell, because
I love that quote.
Most people are living in an emotional hell, and they're just being triggered and reactive and constantly at the mercy of other people and whether they're liked or disliked. Or I remember Miguel talking about another eye-opening thing that he said. So much of my work, my early transformation, was with the work I did with Miguel. So the things he said were profound at the time for me. And he said, you should never have to justify or explain yourself to a soul. He said, people will either get you or they won't. They will like you or they won't. And you can't make somebody like you if they don't. And it's not because you're not likable. People are seeing through their own triggers and their own, filters and their own life experience. And your tone of voice may remind a guy of his mother or whatever. He may look at you and you look like his ex-girlfriend who was, emotionally abusive or emotionally unstable. And so there's nothing we can do except be who we are, right? And I always had, I decided at a certain point in my life that I was going to start going where the love is. Like I was, instead of in the past where I had gone, and tried to get people who didn't like me to like me, I realized I actually had a women's group, and there were like 4 women in the group who just loved me. They were all these young women in their early 30s, little sponges. They wanted to hear everything I knew, and we would meet, and they adored me. And there was one woman who wanted to challenge me. She wanted to, really go up against me. And for a brief moment, she started hooking me and pulling my attention away from these other 4 women who were so lovely. And then I caught myself and I said, I'm not going to do this. Why would I be focusing on the one woman who wasn't hearing receptive to what I had to say, why would I not focus on the 4 women who adored me? And the other woman wound up leaving. And it was great.
Right.
It was beautiful.
Right.
So, yeah, but in our, one of the beautiful things, well, we have a book that we recommend to our clients that is called
How to Improve Your Marriage Without Talking About It.
Yes, and it's by Dr. Pat Love and Dr. Stephen Stosny.
Yeah.
And it's a book I wish we had written because it is so brilliant. And I really think it's a hard thing for people to wrap their brains around, because they're not saying you don't talk about things that come up. But what they're saying is sitting and processing and blaming, saying, well, when you said this, I felt this, and if you had said it like this. And
Yeah, and blaming and complaining aren't clean forms of communication.
No.
They're-
A person is only, your partner is going to understand when you take responsibility, right? And you are willing to look at your own part and be able to say, honey, like the other night when you came to me and you said, I'm so sorry, I was very tired last night, and I know how, what a rough week you had. And you were so compassionate, and it created this space for me to say, babe, I'm so sorry, that I couldn't be more present, and I'm so sorry that I didn't understand how you were feeling in that moment.
Right. I think of what they say in 12 Step about keeping your side of the street clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so nice when you do, even if I couldn't have heard you, or if I was still not able to, meet you there, you feel good about knowing that you kept your side of the street clean.
And sometimes it just takes one person.
Right.
There's the other book by, I think, Susan Page, that
How one of you can bring the 2 of you together.
Yeah. So it doesn't always take 2 people, just, sometimes it takes one person to change the entire dynamics of a relationship.
Yeah. And you don't always want to be the one person who's changing the dynamics. If you're constantly the one who's taking the high road and you're always the one who's extending the olive branch, that's not good either.
Yeah.
I think what makes our relationship so powerful is that we both show up 100%, and it's not that we can always be perfect in every moment, but we have an underlying understanding that we want to show up 100%, that we want to take responsibility for our part. And so when there are those little moments of imbalance, I think we get through them very quickly because of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you take the high road and then I meet you there, and sometimes it's the reverse. There are times where I'm a bit clearer and you're exhausted, or you've been working hard, and or you're whatever, and then I'll be the one to come towards you. So there's a wonderful balance of us, and so it makes it so easy to work through those things because we both know how much we love each other.
I think the bottom line is that very often, even in what seems like an impossible relationship, that it doesn't take much to turn it around.
Yeah.
It just suddenly someone feels heard. Someone realizes that if they say something, it's not going to be reacted to. That the other person sees them for not just their actions and the words that they're saying at that moment, but underneath for the innocence and what they really are asking for.
Yeah.
And when that happens, relationships change, and they just keep getting better and better and better.
Well, honey, I love you so much. You are just amazing. I adore you, and you're such a wonderful, wonderful partner.
Thank you.
Truly, truly, truly. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening. I know this is a topic we can and will say a lot more about. the book I would recommend reading is The Mastery of Love, and The Four Agreements, if you really want to start to learn how not to be reactive, how not to take things personally, not make assumptions. That's another big one. Those two go hand in hand. But I do think, not everybody feels that Don Miguel's books are the deepest, but for me, they were formative for me. I really loved it. So please join us again. We do these every Sunday morning. I do 2 podcasts a week. My podcast is called Dating with Drama, and I have lunch with Lisa.
Dating without drama.
Oh, dating without drama. Did I say dating with drama? Oh my goodness. Dating without drama. And I do 2 episodes a week. This is why I need a partner, so that I can have an extra set of eyes and ears. So lunch with Lisa and Getting Inside the Right Male Mind with my husband, Benjamin Shield. You can also send us your topics. If there's something that you would like for us to talk about, please send those suggestions to podcast@lisashield.com. Please rate and like this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, also rate and like my YouTube channel, and tell your friends, your sisters, your daughters, your brothers, your uncles, your parents, tell everybody about this podcast, because we have heard from many of you that we are saying things that nobody else is saying, or if we are, we're saying them in a unique way. So let's spread love. Let's take responsibility for who we're being in the world. And let's love each other unconditionally, because it's possible. It's possible to have real, lasting, true love. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.